If you are under criminal investigation,
stop tweeting.
Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is Winnie the Westie, who now no longer has a tick on his face. Yesterday we were petting the dog and my kid started freaking out. She said, "What's that on the dog's face?" He had a big, fat, disgusting tick on his face. Oh my gosh, it was disgusting. Okay, pull his hair back and show us the tick again. Gentle, gentle, gentle. There it is. Okay, good boy. Good
Don't touch it, Dad. I'm not even gonna let you touch it.
Anyhow, we rushed him over to the vet and the vet took it off, and we're going to monitor his health because apparently it might be a deer tick, but we don't have a lot of Lyme disease carrying deer ticks around here, so we're not that worried, but it was just truly, truly disgusting. Well, the news of the day continues to be Alec Baldwin and that tragic shooting that occurred on set of Rust, and I've got to tell you something from a PR perspective, from a legal perspective. When you are under criminal investigation for a shooting that left someone dead,
stop tweeting about it.
Now, I am not here to promote the idea that one should never talk to the police, although there are a number of criminal lawyers who do suggest just that, especially when you are under investigation. But there is the old expression, do not talk to the police, especially when you're under investigation, because they're not there to make friends with you. They're there to find evidence that is going to be used, possibly against you. And this legal advice has never been more succinctly put than by the Pot Brothers. And if you haven't seen that video, I'm going to link it now, but this is just a highlight of the Pot Brothers at law legal advice to you if the police want to ask you questions.
Mark and Craig, Pot Brothers at Law. We've been warning people, if you are working for an unlicensed dispensary, an illegal dispensary, and it gets raided, you need to shut the f*** up. What do you say when the cop first pulls you over?
Why'd you pull me over?
And when he keeps asking questions?
Not discussing my day.
And if detained, what do you say?
I invoke the fifth.
And then what do? You shut the f***.
New details continue to emerge from that incident, and it can only be described as a cluster truck of mistakes, one after the other after the other. And the question really isn't, is anyone going to be held responsible? The question is, how many people are going to be held responsible for this incident? Now, one thing I have personally come to appreciate in this entire situation is that the term prop gun in the context of movie sets does not mean a fake or a replica. It could very well mean a real gun. The term is derived from property director's property. That is to say, anything on the set of a movie is called a prop. If it's affixed to the wall in the background, then it becomes part of the set. But a prop gun in the context of films could be a fake, a replica, or a very real functional firearm. I was criticizing the mainstream media for using this term in a way that could lead the ordinary person to believe that this somehow was not a real firearm, when it seems that according to people who know better, everybody understands that a prop gun on a set could in fact be a real firearm. But lo and behold, as far as the general public goes, it seems 2/3 of the people out there tend to think of a prop gun when used as a concept as being a fake or replica firearm. Other details that have emerged since this story broke involve the armorer on set for this movie. Apparently she's a 24-year-old. This was all of her second gig as an armorer. The last film she did was a Nicolas Cage movie, and apparently she had incidents on the Nicolas Cage set as well. Now, the purpose of this vlog is not to go over those details, and besides, I couldn't do it any better than Eric Hunley just did with Mark Grobert on their new channel, America's Untold Stories. I'm going to link to that video so you can go check it out and get the latest. The purpose of this vlog is when you're under criminal investigation, and from a PR perspective, stop tweeting
in the days after a tragedy.
Nothing good can come of it. It doesn't look good one way or the other, and when they say don't answer police questions unless you have an attorney present, when you are tweeting to the Twitterverse, you are in fact talking directly to the police, where anything you say can and will be used against you. But first, let's just address Alec Baldwin's first tweet, which was an absolute necessity given the incident, but my goodness, if I'm on his PR team or his legal team, I would have told him to redraft this. 1. There are no words to convey my shock and sadness regarding the tragic accident that took the life of Helena Hutchins, a wife, a mother, and deeply admired colleague of ours. I'm fully cooperating with the police investigation to address how this tragedy occurred. And 2, I am in touch with her husband, offering my support to him and his family. My heart is broken for her husband, their son, and all who knew and loved Helena. Now, I'm not saying any of this to be mean to Alec Baldwin or to kick him when he is down. Full stop. I think Alec Baldwin went off the deep end politically a while back. From his reputation, it seems that he might not be be the nicest of characters, but nonetheless, I would not wish this fate on my worst enemy. I genuinely feel bad for Alec Baldwin. I have no doubt that he is going through immeasurable anguish right now, and it reminds me of that line from the movie Magnolia. I think it was John C. Reilly who said,
"Sometimes people need a little help, sometimes people need to be forgiven, and sometimes they need to go to jail."
So in the midst of how bad I do in fact feel for Alec Baldwin, there will nonetheless be consequences to these actions. The only question is whether or not these consequences are going to reflect any sort of justice from this situation, whatever justice could be in this situation. But reading this tweet from Alec Baldwin, you would kind of not even get the impression that he was the person who actually pulled the trigger. This tweet is drafted in such a manner that you would think Alec Baldwin had nothing to do with the incident and just became aware of the information and was tweeting his generic condolences via Twitter.
There are no words to convey my shock and sadness.
This is something you would say to an event that happened. This is not something you would say to an event that you caused. It is the monumental difference between there are no words for what happened versus
I have no words for what I just did.
tragic accident or not. It is in fact something that Alec Baldwin literally did with his own hand, and tragic accident or not, sometimes people still have to go to jail for tragic accidents. But Alec Baldwin's poor judgment in tweeting does not end at this tweet. He recently retweeted 2 other tweets. I guess he's thinking he's making a public argument for his own innocence, but these retweets can definitely come back to haunt him, both in a legal sense and from a PR sense. Alec Baldwin, HABF, retweeted the New York Times. Before he handed a revolver that he declared, quote, cold, end quote, to Alec Baldwin on the set of the film, quote, Rust, end quote, Dave Halls, an assistant director, told the detective he should have inspected each round in each chamber according to an affidavit. But he did not. Alec Baldwin thinks he's pleading his case in the court of public opinion. He thinks he's proving his innocence by retweeting this. All that this tweet confirms is that Alec Baldwin was knowingly handed a real firearm.
He knew it was a real firearm.
Even if the person before him who handed him that real firearm did not check the chambers, that means that Alec Baldwin did not check the chambers either before pulling the trigger, either by
Accident or on purpose.
And the by accident or on purpose was a dangling modifier. It applied to having pulled the trigger because the context of how Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger are not yet known, but now Alec Baldwin himself is retweeting the context in terms of how he came to be holding a loaded firearm and pulled the trigger without knowing if that firearm were loaded, without having checked it himself. So fine, the assistant director Dave Hall himself might share in the responsibility, but someone else's fault in this does not necessarily exonerate Alec Baldwin himself. And by retweeting this, you seemingly have Alec Baldwin confirming that he was handed a real firearm and did not bother to check it himself, and if he thinks he's going to pit the blame on the assistant director Dave Hall, he might be wrong in law and might be better off just staying quiet at this point in time. Another tweet from Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin was told prop gun was safe before fatal shooting. The gun handed to Alec Baldwin on the set of the Western film, quote, Rust, end quote, was declared safe by the production's assistant director, according to an affidavit. Now, one of my gripes with the mainstream media coverage of this story was precisely their use of the term prop gun, because as per the poll that I ran on Twitter, it seems that a good 2/3 of the population tend to think of a prop gun as being a fake firearm. But my own ignorance of the industry aside, one thing is for certain, Alec Baldwin, when he held that gun, knew it was a real gun. And him taking to social media to confirm the fact that he was in fact handed a real gun but told it was a cold gun is not necessarily going to be as exonerating as he thinks it's going to be. So from a legal and PR perspective, Alec Baldwin is best to just stop tweeting entirely. Now, I know that he is probably tweeting for a number of reasons, one of which is probably to convince himself that he is in fact innocent and the victim of a tragic mistake. The other is to try and convince the general public of that as well, and based on some of the responses from his tweets, he is succeeding in that venture. But it is easy to convince the people who are already on your side. There are others who are going to take this information, dissect it in the exact same way I'm doing right now, and that is probably going to be the authorities. There is absolutely no good that Alec Baldwin can do by continuing to tweet, and someone on his team just has to tell him to stop it entirely. So that is the latest. We will definitely be discussing this with Robert Barnes on Sunday's stream. If you like my videos, you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm.
Don't take the cork off the fork.
If you want to support the channel, all of the support links are in the pinned comment. If you want to find me and Robert Barnes on Locals, where supporters get a lot of exclusive content, but members at large get a lot of free content, you can find us at
VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com.
All of my content is also on Rumble, and for those of you who have not heard, Rumble just acquired Locals, so I expect big things for both companies in the future, but more important than any of that, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and now you know your vlog. Peace out.